Chapter 1. The Invitation to the Heights. The envelope arrived on a silver tray, delivered by a postman who had climbed the steep cobbled lanes of St. Mary Mead with the reluctance of a man unused to such altitudes. Hercule Poirot, seated in the modest drawing-room of his temporary English retreat, regarded the envelope with the same meticulous attention he gave to a misaligned cufflink. It was thick, cream-coloured, and sealed with crimson wax, impressed by a crest he did not immediately recognise, a stylized dolphin entwined with a trident. The paper smelled faintly of salt and bergamot. Inside, the invitation was handwritten in a flowing, aristocratic hand. Monsieur Hercule Poirot, your presence is requested at Villa Azur, Cap d'Antibes, on the evening of the 15th of August for a soirée in celebration of the summer solstice. The view from the balcony is, I am told, unparalleled. Do come. One hears you are never bored by a puzzle. Yours, in anticipation, Comtesse Isolde de Rochefort-Poirot's moustache twitched. The Comtesse was a name whispered in Parisian salons and Monte Carlo casinos alike. A widow of 3 husbands, each wealthier than the last, each deceased, under circumstances that raised eyebrows, but never quite enough evidence for the courts. The invitation was not merely polite, it was a dare. He turned the card over. On the reverse, someone had added in hurried pencil, "Bring your little grey cells. They will be needed." The handwriting was different, sharper, almost impatient. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A second author, perhaps? Or the Comtesse indulging in theatricality? He set the invitation beside his morning coffee and considered. The Riviera in August was a furnace of ostentation. Yachts like white whales, women draped in diamonds that caught the sun and flung it back like insults, men whose smiles never reached their eyes. Yet beneath the glamour, the Côte d'Azur was a place where old grudges fermented in the heat, and new ones were born with every clink of champagne. A perfect stage for murder, if one were so inclined. Poirot had intended to spend the month cataloguing the inconsistencies in English railway timetables, a pursuit that soothed him the way knitting soothed lesser minds. But the invitation tugged at him like a loose thread. The view from the balcony is unparalleled, a curious emphasis. Balconies, he reflected, were liminal spaces, neither inside nor out, public yet intimate, places where secrets were confessed, lovers quarrelled, and occasionally people fell. He rang the bell. Mrs. Oliver, his temporary landlady, and an enthusiastic if erratic novelist, appeared with the speed of a woman who lived in hope of gossip. "You rang, Monsieur Poirot. Not another murder, I hope. I'm still recovering from the last one." "No, madame, merely a journey. I require the Bradshaw's guide and a timetable for the blue train. Also, if you would be so kind, a small tin of your excellent gooseberry jam. One must fortify oneself." Mrs. Oliver's eyes gleamed. "The blue train to the Riviera. My dear Monsieur Poirot, you're off to mingle with the beautiful and the damned." "Precisely," Poirot said dryly, "though I suspect the damned will outnumber the beautiful." 3 days later, he stood on the platform at Calais, impeccably dressed in a light grey suit despite the heat, his Homburg hat tilted at a precise angle. The train to the south was a marvel of lacquered wood and brass, its dining car already murmuring with the accents of wealth. Poirot installed himself in a corner seat, ordered a tisane, and observed his fellow passengers with the detachment of a naturalist studying beetles. There was Sir Reginald Blaine, the English industrialist whose factories belched smoke over half the Midlands, travelling with a secretary who took dictation in shorthand and longing glances. There was Madame Valenska, the opera singer whose voice could shatter crystal and whose temper could shatter reputations. And there, in a cloud of Russian cigarettes and Chanel No. 5, was Count Alexei Voronin, exiled royalty, with a gambler's smile and a reputation for disappearing when debts were called in. Poirot noted them all, filing away details, the way Sir Reginald's left hand trembled when he thought no one was watching. The scar on Madame Valenska's wrist, shaped like a crescent moon. The fact that Count Voronin's cufflinks were mismatched, one gold, one silver, as if he had dressed in haste or desperation. The journey south was a slow unwinding of landscape. The grey fields of northern France giving way to vineyards, then to the jagged blue of the Mediterranean. Poirot dozed, dreamt of symmetrical gardens and a balcony where a woman in emerald silk laughed too loudly, and woke to find the train climbing the Corniche road towards Antibes. Villa Azur perched on the cliffs like a white bird about to take flight. Its balconies jutted over the sea, cantilevered daringly above rocks that gleamed black and wet, even in sunlight. As Poirot's taxi wound up the private drive, he caught glimpses of the party already in progress. Lanterns strung between cypress trees, the flash of jewels, the low thrum of a jazz band, playing something syncopated and American. A footman in powder-blue livery relieved him of his valise. "Monsieur Poirot, the Comtesse is expecting you this way." The entrance hall was a cathedral of marble and mirrors, reflecting infinity. A chandelier the size of a small car dripped crystal tears. Somewhere, a fountain played. Poirot's shoes clicked across the floor as he followed the footman up a staircase that curved like a question mark. They emerged onto the famous balcony. It was larger than he had imagined. A terrazzo platform cantilevered over the void, surrounded by a balustrade of wrought iron, twisted into dolphins and tridents. The same motif as the wax seal. The sea below was a restless sapphire, throwing up spray that caught the dying light. Tables groaned under the weight of lobsters, caviar, and champagne in silver buckets. Guests milled like bright fish in a net. The Comtesse detached herself from a knot of admirers and approached. She was taller than Poirot had expected, with the kind of bone structure that made photographers weep. Her gown was black lace over nude silk, cut to imply rather than reveal. Diamonds winked at her throat like malevolent stars. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice husky with Gauloises and secrets. "You came. I was beginning to fear you preferred the company of English spinsters and their teacups." "On the contrary, madame, I'm always partial to a view that might inspire reflections." Her smile was a blade. "Then reflect on this. Half the people here would kill for what the other half already possess. The other half would kill to keep it. A delightful equilibrium, non?" Before Poirot could reply, a scream cut through the jazz like a knife through silk. It came from the far end of the balcony, where a cluster of guests had gathered around a table of absinthe and oysters. A woman in emerald silk, the same woman from Poirot's dream, stood with her hands pressed to her mouth. Between her feet, something dark pooled on the terrazzo, spreading like spilled ink. Poirot moved forward, the crowd parting instinctively. The Comtesse followed, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm. The body lay face down, one arm outstretched as if reaching for the sea. A man's evening shoe had come off, revealing a silk sock with a hole at the heel, an incongruous detail that lodged in Poirot's mind like a burr. Blood trickled from beneath the corpse's head, mixing with the absinthe someone had dropped in shock. Poirot knelt, careful not to disturb the scene. The man's hair was silver at the temples, his dinner jacket impeccably cut. A gold signet ring glinted on his right hand. Poirot gently turned the head. The face was unfamiliar, yet something about the angle of the jaw, the shape of the ears, tugged at memory. Then he saw the balcony's edge, only feet away, and the smear of blood on the balustrade, where the man had evidently struck it before falling. "Mon Dieu," the Comtesse murmured. "It's Victor Langford. He was alive 10 minutes ago, arguing with his wife about yacht racing." Poirot stood. "Madame, you will clear the balcony. No one leaves the villa. The police must be called. But first," he scanned the faces around him. Shock, horror, and beneath it all, the flicker of calculation. First, Hercule Poirot must understand how a man falls from a balcony that is guarded by iron and surrounded by witnesses. The jazz had stopped. In the silence, the sea crashed against the rocks below, patient and indifferent. Poirot's little grey cells stirred, stretching like a cat after a long nap. The game, as they say, was afoot. Chapter 2. Shadows on the Balcony. The body of Victor Langford lay exactly where it had fallen, one arm flung toward the sea as if in supplication. The terrazzo beneath him was slick with blood and absinthe, the green liquor mingling with red in a grotesque parody of a cocktail. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the circle of shocked guests, his small, neat figure a dark exclamation mark against the glittering chaos. The jazz band had fallen silent. Even the waves seemed to hush, listening. Poirot raised a hand. "Mesdames et messieurs, your attention, s'il vous plaît. No one is to leave this balcony until the local police arrive. The Comtesse, if you would be so kind as to instruct your staff." Isolde de Rochefort's face was pale beneath her rouge, but her voice carried the authority of a woman accustomed to obedience. "Henri, lock the gates, no one in or out. And someone fetch Dr. Laurent, he's in the card-room." A footman scurried off. The guests shifted uneasily, their champagne flutes forgotten. Poirot's eyes moved over them with the precision of a watchmaker examining gears. Closest to the body stood Mrs. Evelyn Langford, Victor's wife. She was a statuesque woman in her late 30s, with the kind of beauty that required maintenance. Ash-blonde hair coiled like a crown, a gown of silver lamé that caught the lantern light and threw it back in shards. Her hands were clasped so tightly that the knuckles showed white. Tears streaked her cheeks, but her eyes, Poirot noted, were dry. Beside her, supporting her elbow, was Captain Marcus Hale, late of His Majesty's Navy. He was tall, sunburned, with the kind of jaw that suggested he bit down on life and refused to let go. His dress uniform was slightly askew, the top button undone, as if he had dressed in haste. His other hand hovered near Evelyn's waist, protective or possessive. Poirot could not yet tell. Further back, half hidden in the shadow of a potted oleander, stood Miss Daphne Blaine, Sir Reginald's daughter. She was barely 20, all elbows and eyes, dressed in a frock of palest pink that made her look like a confection about to melt. Her gaze darted between the body and her father, who stood rigid beside the Comtesse, his face the colour of old parchment. Count Alexei Voronin lounged against the balustrade, lighting a cigarette with fingers that did not tremble. The flame illuminated his face for a moment. High cheekbones, a mouth that smiled too easily. He exhaled smoke toward the sea and said something in Russian that made Madame Valenska laugh. A low, throaty sound that seemed obscene in the circumstances. Poirot stepped forward, his potent leather shoes avoiding the blood with delicate precision. He knelt again beside Victor Langford. The man's evening jacket had ridden up, revealing a waistcoat of midnight blue silk. In the breast pocket, something glinted. Poirot extracted it with a handkerchief. A small gold cigarette case, monogrammed VL. Inside, half a dozen Turkish cigarettes and a scrap of paper folded into a baguette tight square. He unfolded it carefully. A single line, written in pencil. "Midnight. The dolphin statue, come alone." The handwriting was hurried, the letters slanting drunkenly. Poirot slipped the note into his own pocket just as Dr. Laurent arrived, breathless and smelling of brandy. "Mon Dieu," the doctor muttered, kneeling. "Head trauma, almost certainly. The fall—" He glanced over the balustrade. 20 meters, perhaps more. Instantaneous, I should think. Yet he did not fall far from the edge, Poirot observed. "See, the blood on the iron. He struck it here, then toppled. But why so close to the rail? Was he leaning out, arguing, or—" He let the question hang. Evelyn Langford made a small, choked sound. Captain Hale's arm tightened around her. "He was pushed," she whispered. "Someone pushed him." The word pushed rippled through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Poirot stood, brushing imaginary dust from his knees. "Madam, you were with your husband moments before." We quarrelled," Evelyn said. Her voice was steady now, almost defiant. "About the yacht. Victor wanted to sell Seawitch to pay his debts. I refused. He stormed off toward the balustrade. I followed, but—" She pressed a hand to her mouth. "I turned away for a moment. When I looked back, he was gone." Captain Hale spoke for the first time. "I was with Mrs. Langford the entire time." After their argument, Victor walked to the end of the balcony alone. I saw no one approach him. Poirot's gaze flicked to Hale's shoes, white buckskin, spotless despite the blood on the floor. Curious. Most men would have stepped in it by now. "And you, mademoiselle?" Poirot turned to Daphne Blaine, who had crept closer, her eyes wide as saucers. I was over there," she stammered, pointing to a table of canapes. "With Papa. We were watching the fireworks. They started just before it happened." Sir Reginald cleared his throat. "Quite right. The first rocket went up at 11:58. I remember because I'd just consulted my watch. Victor was alive then. He called out something about the display being tacky. Then the second rocket and—" He gestured helplessly at the body. Poirot nodded. Fireworks. A convenient distraction. Loud, bright, impossible to ignore. He made a mental note of the timing. The Comtesse approached, her diamonds flashing as she moved. "Monsieur Poirot, the police are on their way. Inspector Lefebvre. He is competent, I suppose, for a provincial. But you—" She lowered her voice. "You will investigate? Discreetly." "Discretion is my middle name," Poirot said dryly. "Though I confess I have not yet been introduced to it formally." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Then let us begin with the staff. My butler, Henri, saw Victor earlier this evening, arguing with someone in the library." "Arguing?" Poirot's moustache quivered. "With whom?" "Count Voronin." The Comtesse's gaze slid to the Russian, who was now examining his cigarette as if it held the secrets of the universe. "Something about a debt, or a woman. With Alexei, it is always one or the other." Poirot excused himself and approached the Count. Up close, Voronin smelled of tobacco and something sharper, vodka perhaps, or fear. "Count Voronin, a word. You were seen quarrelling with Monsieur Langford. About a debt?" Voronin's smile was lazy. "My dear Poirot, in Monte Carlo, all quarrels are about debts. Victor owed me 5,000 francs. Pocket change. I teased him about it. He laughed, said his wife's jewellery would cover it. Then he wandered off to admire the view. He gestured vaguely at the sea. Tragic, really. The balcony is slippery when wet. Was it wet? Poirot asked sharply. Voronin shrugged. Spray from the waves, you know how it is. Poirot did not know. The terrazzo had been dry when he arrived, and the spray from below barely reached the balustrade. Another detail to tuck away. He moved systematically now, interviewing each guest in turn. Madame Valenska claimed to have been in the powder room, adjusting her face at the crucial moment. Her lipstick was indeed smudged, but Poirot noted the faint scent of Turkish tobacco on her breath, matching the cigarettes in Victor's case. Sir Reginald insisted he had not left his daughter's side. Daphne confirmed this, but her hands twisted the silk of her dress into knots, and she would not meet Poirot's eyes. The staff were next. Henri the butler, a thin man with the mournful expression of a bloodhound, admitted to serving Victor a whisky sour at 11:45. He was alone then, monsieur, drinking heavily, said something about settling scores before the night was out. The maid, a pretty girl named Marie, had seen Victor on the balcony at 11:50, speaking to a woman in a red dress. Not Mrs. Langford. Her gown was silver. This one was scarlet, like blood. They were near the dolphin statue, heads close together. Poirot's interest sharpened. The dolphin statue, a bronze sculpture at the balcony's farthest end, its tail curled like a question mark. The same statue mentioned in the note. He approached it now. The statue was life-sized, its surface slick with sea mist. At its base, something caught the light. A single pearl earring, dropped or torn away in a struggle. Poirot pocketed it with his handkerchief. The police arrived at last. Inspector Lefebvre, a harried man with a moustache that aspired to Poirot's, but fell short in both wax and ambition. He took one look at the body, another at the assembled aristocracy, and turned positively green. Monsieur Poirot, he said with relief, thank God you are here. This is irregular. Murder often is, Poirot replied. But let us be methodical. The body must not be moved yet. I require photographs, measurements, and he glanced at the blood smear on the balustrade. Samples of this residue. It is not all blood. Lefebvre blinked. Not blood. Observe the colour. Some is darker, stickier, absinthe, perhaps, or something else. As the inspector barked orders, Poirot slipped away to the balcony's edge. The sea crashed below, indifferent. He leaned over, careful not to touch the rail. 20 meters down, the rocks gleamed black and wet. No ladder, no rope, no easy escape. Yet Victor Langford had not simply fallen. The angle was wrong. His body lay parallel to the balustrade, not perpendicular as one would expect from a tumble. Pushed then. But by whom? And why here, in full view of 30 witnesses? Poirot's gaze drifted to the dolphin statue. In its mouth, something glinted, a scrap of red fabric, caught between the bronze teeth. He reached for it carefully. Silk, torn from a dress. Scarlet silk, the woman in red. He turned back to the crowd. Evelyn Langford was being led inside by Captain Hale, her silver gown now stained with her husband's blood. Daphne Blaine had vanished, slipped away in the confusion perhaps. Count Voronin was nowhere to be seen. The Comtesse approached, her face unreadable. Well, Monsieur Poirot, have your little grey cells begun to dance? They are warming up, Poirot said, but the music is discordant. Tell me, madame, do you know a woman who wears scarlet silk and pearl earrings? The Comtesse's eyes flickered. Half the women here tonight, I should think, but... She hesitated. There was a guest who arrived late. A Miss Clarissa Vale, English, red dress, pearls. She came with Sir Reginald, I believe, as his companion. Poirot's moustache twitched. Sir Reginald, who had not left his daughter's side. Curiouser and curiouser. The inspector called for the body to be moved. As the stretcher-bearers lifted Victor Langford, something fell from his pocket. A second note, crumpled and blood-stained. Poirot snatched it before Lefebvre could see. "You think you can ruin me? The balcony at midnight. We end this. No signature." But the handwriting matched the first note exactly. Poirot slipped both notes into his pocket. 2 messages, same hand, same urgency. A meeting arranged, and someone had ensured Victor would not keep it. He looked out over the sea. The moon had risen, silvering the waves. Somewhere in the villa, a clock struck 12. Midnight, the appointed hour. The balcony was empty now, save for the blood and the dolphin statue, its bronze eyes staring blindly at the spot where Victor Langford had died. Poirot shivered, though the night was warm. The shadows on the balcony had lengthened, and in them he sensed the shape of secrets yet to be unveiled. The game had only just begun. Chapter 3. The Little Grey Cells Awaken. The library of Villa Azure smelled of beeswax, old leather, and the ghost of cigars long extinguished. Hercule Poirot closed the double doors behind him, with a soft click that sounded in the sudden hush like the cocking of a pistol. The room was lit by a single green-shaded lamp on the central table, throwing a pool of light onto a map of the Mediterranean and a half-empty decanter of Armagnac. The rest of the space receded into velvet darkness. Poirot did not sit. He prowled. First, the balcony doors, French windows actually, flung wide to admit the night breeze. He examined the lock, a simple brass latch, no key required from the inside. A child could open it. He stepped onto the narrow service balcony that ran along the library's exterior, a mere ledge compared to the grand terrace above. From here, one could climb a drainpipe to the main balcony in 30 seconds, perhaps less if one were young and desperate. He made a mental note. Back inside, he turned to the desk. A blotter, inkstand, a silver paper knife shaped like a dolphin. Papers were neatly stacked, but one corner of the blotter had been disturbed, ink smudged, as if someone had written hastily and pressed too hard. Poirot held it to the lamp. Faint indentations. Cannot allow exposure. Midnight balcony. The same words, or close enough. He photographed the impressions with his mind, then moved on. A faint scuff on the parquet caught his eye. White powder, chalky like talcum but coarser. He scraped a sample into an envelope with the paper knife. Nearby, a single pearl button lay half hidden beneath the rug's fringe. Mother of pearl, expensive, the kind sewn onto a lady's glove. He pocketed it. The bookshelves yielded nothing obvious, no secret panels, no hidden safes, but a gap between 2 volumes of Balzac suggested a book recently removed. Poirot pulled out the neighbouring tome, Les Liaisons Dangereuses, apt. He replaced it exactly. Finally, the fireplace. Cold ashes, but one scrap of paper had escaped the flames, charred at the edges, yet legible. Langford holds the proof. If he speaks, we are finished. Meet me library 11:30. C. The initial C was flourished, almost regal. Poirot's moustache bristled with satisfaction. A rendezvous interrupted perhaps by death. He was folding the fragment into his wafer-thin Morocco notebook when the door opened without a knock. Inspector Lefebvre entered, hat in hand, looking as though he had aged a decade in an hour. Behind him loomed Captain Hale, his naval cloak thrown back, eyes hard. "Monsieur Poirot," Lefebvre began, "the doctor confirms death by cranial trauma consistent with a fall onto the balustrade followed by the rocks. No stab wounds, no gunshot, but," he hesitated, "there is bruising on the victim's shoulders, as if gripped hard from behind, and a laceration on the right palm. Defensive, perhaps. Poirot's gaze sharpened. The hand that reached for the dolphin statue? Possibly. Also, his pocket watch is stopped at 11:57. Smashed in the fall, likely. Or stopped deliberately, Poirot murmured. A message, perhaps. Hale stepped forward. See here, Poirot. Mrs. Langford is prostrate. The Comtesse has given her a room. I insist you question her gently, or not at all. Poirot regarded the captain with mild eyes. Captain Hale, in matters of murder, gentleness is a luxury we cannot afford. But rest assured, I am always delicate. Hale's jaw worked, but he said nothing more. Lefebvre cleared his throat. The staff are assembled in the servants' hall. The guests are confined to the drawing-room under guard. Where do you wish to begin? With the woman in red, Poirot said. Miss Clarissa Vale. She has not been seen since the body was discovered. Lefebvre paled. She was here, Sir Reginald's companion, but when we took roll, her name was not on the guest list the Comtesse provided. Convenient, Poirot said. Let us find Sir Reginald. They located the industrialist in the billiard room, chalking a cue with unnecessary violence. Daphne hovered nearby, twisting a handkerchief into knots. Sir Reginald, Poirot began without preamble, you arrived with a Miss Clarissa Vale. Where is she? Blaine's cue slipped, scattering balls. I don't know. She was with me during the fireworks then. Excused herself. Powder room, I think. Daphne's voice was barely a whisper. She went toward the library, Papa. I saw her. She was crying. Poirot's eyes flicked to the girl. Crying? About what? Daphne flushed. I don't know. She and Mr. Langford, they were friends from London. She said something about a letter. Sir Reginald's face darkened. Daphne, enough. Poirot ignored him. Mademoiselle, the truth is a stubborn thing. It will out. Did Miss Vale wear pearl earrings tonight? Daphne nodded miserably. One. She lost the other weeks ago. Said it was bad luck. Lefebvre made a note. Poirot continued. And the red dress? Scarlet silk? Yes. She said it was the only colour that made her feel alive. Sir Reginald slammed the cue onto the table. This is intolerable. Clarissa is a respectable girl. Respectable girls do not vanish when murder is done, Poirot cut in. Inspector, have the grounds searched. The lady may have fled in panic or been taken. As Lefebvre departed, Poirot drew Daphne aside. You are frightened, ma petite. Why? She glanced at her father, then whispered, Because Clarissa told me Mr. Langford was blackmailing someone. She wouldn't say who. Only that if anything happened to him, we should look in the dolphin's mouth. Poirot's pulse quickened. The scrap of red silk. When did she tell you this? Yesterday, on the train. She was drinking gin and talking too loud. Papa didn't hear. Sir Reginald approached, glowering. Poirot, I'll have you know, Sir Reginald, Poirot interrupted. Your daughter is brave to speak. Now, a question. Victor Langford's debts. You lent him money? Blaine hesitated. A trifling sum. Business. He was to repay with shares in a shipping venture. Which venture? Sea Witch Enterprises. The yacht was collateral. Poirot's mind raced. The yacht Evelyn refused to sell. A motive, perhaps, if Victor had been desperate. He excused himself and sought the Comtesse. She was in the winter garden, arranging white roses in a porcelain vase, as if murder were a minor inconvenience. Madame, the guest list. Miss Vale's name was omitted. Why? Isolde did not look up. A clerical error. Clarissa is impulsive. She telephoned from Nice this afternoon begging an invitation. I added her at the gate. Yet she arrived with Sir Reginald. The Comtesse's scissors snipped a stem. Reginald collects pretty things. Clarissa is pretty, and useful. She speaks fluent Russian." Alexei was charmed. Poirot filed that away. And the argument in the library, between Victor and the Count? Debt, as I said, but also, she hesitated, Victor accused Alexei of seducing his wife. Evelyn laughed it off, but Victor was furious. He threatened to expose Alexei's activities. Activities? Smuggling, I believe. Antiquities, through the yacht. Poirot's little grey cells sparked. A triangle. Debt, infidelity, crime. And, at its centre, the balcony. He returned to the crime scene, now cordoned with red tape. The blood had dried to a rusty brown. He knelt again, examining the balustrade. The smear was not uniform. 2 distinct handprints, one larger, one smaller, as if 2 people had gripped the iron. The smaller print was smudged with green absinthe, or the residue he had noticed earlier. He scraped a sample, then measured the distance from the prints to the dolphin statue, 3 meters. Victor had been standing here, facing the sea when attacked from behind. The bruising on his shoulders suggested a push, but the defensive wound on his palm, had he grabbed the statue as he fell? Poirot reconstructed. Victor at the rail. Someone approaches stealthily. A struggle, brief, silent amid the fireworks. A shove. Victor's hand slashes out, catches the statue, tears fabric from his assailant's dress. Then over the edge. But the note, midnight. Victor had been early, or the murderer had been eager. He examined the terrazzo again. A faint scuff mark, heel-shaped, leading toward the French windows. The same white powder as in the library. Someone had entered from inside, committed the crime, retreated the same way. The service balcony. Poirot climbed down carefully. The drainpipe was sturdy, but flakes of rust clung to his gloves. Halfway along the ledge, a scrap of scarlet silk fluttered from a nail. He plucked it free. The tear matched the fragment in the dolphin's mouth. Inside the library once more, he found Lefebvre supervising the removal of Victor's body. The inspector looked up. "We found this in Langford's pocket." He held out a key, small, brass, numbered 12. "Room 12, Poirot said. "The guest suites are on the 2nd floor?" Lefebvre nodded. "Locked from the outside. Mrs. Langford's room is 14. Hers was open." They climbed the stairs. Room 12 was at the end of the corridor, window overlooking the sea. The key turned smoothly. Inside, the room was untouched, bed made, suitcase unopened. But on the dressing table lay a woman's vanity case, scarlet leather monogrammed CV Clarissa Vale's room. Poirot opened it. Lipstick, powder, a bottle of perfume, fleur de rocaille. And beneath the tray, a bundle of letters tied with red ribbon. He slit the top one open. "My darling C, Victor knows. He has the photographs. Meet me library 11:30, or we are ruined." A. The handwriting matched the burnt scrap. Count Alexei. Poirot's mind whirred. Clarissa and Alexei, lovers, Victor the blackmailer. But why kill him before the midnight meeting? Unless he examined the window, open a hand's breadth. On the sill, a smear of white powder and a single pearl earring, mate to the one on the balcony. Someone had entered or exited here. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck 1. Poirot pocketed the letters and returned to the drawing room, where the guests sat in strange silence. Evelyn Langford was composed now, sipping brandy. Captain Hale stood behind her chair like a sentinel. Poirot addressed them all. "Mesdames et messieurs, a detail. Who among you wears fleur de rocaille perfume?" Madame Valenska raised a languid hand. "I do. Why? And who lost a pearl earring tonight?" Silence. Then Daphne Blaine whispered, "Clarissa. She was always losing things." Poirot nodded. "Thank you. Inspector, I require the Count Voronin, and Miss Vale's luggage from the hall, if it exists." Lefebvre departed. Poirot turned to Evelyn. "Madame, your husband's watch stopped at 11:57, yet the fireworks began at 11:58. How is this possible?" Evelyn's hand trembled. I don't know. Perhaps it was slow. Or stopped deliberately," Poirot said, "to create confusion about the time of death." Captain Hale bristled. "Are you accusing?" "I accuse no one," Poirot said, "yet. But consider, a man is pushed at 11:57, falls 20 meters, strikes the rocks. The sound is masked by fireworks 1 minute later. Clever. But the watch? Why smash it, unless to mislead?" The door opened. Lefebvre returned, alone. The Count is not in his room. His valet says he went for a walk on the cliffs, and Miss Vale's luggage, there is none. Only a cloakroom ticket, unclaimed. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Then we have a fugitive, or a victim. He strode to the window, flung it open. The sea roared below, hungry. Somewhere in the darkness, a woman's scream rose, brief, cut off. The little grey cells were fully awake now, dancing to a rhythm only Poirot could hear. The puzzle was taking shape. A lover's tryst, a blackmailer's threat, a vanished woman in red. And above it all, the balcony, silent witness to murder. But one piece was missing, the white powder. He withdrew the envelope, sniffed it. Plaster of Paris mixed with something acrid. Stage makeup, or something more sinister? The clock struck the quarter hour. Time was slipping away, like sand through fingers, or blood through terrazzo cracks. Poirot turned to Lefebvre. "Inspector, we search the cliffs, and the boathouse. Bring lanterns, the tide is rising." As they moved toward the door, Poirot paused beside Evelyn Langford. Her brandy glass was empty, her eyes fixed on the balcony beyond the window. "Madame," he said softly, "your husband reached for something as he fell. Was it the sea, or salvation?" She did not answer, but her hand moved to her throat, where a single pearl earring gleamed, alone. Poirot smiled, a small cat-like smile. The hunt was on. Chapter 4. Secrets of the Sea Breeze. The tide had turned while the villa slept uneasily, and now the sea flung itself against the rocks beneath Villa Azur, with the fury of a jilted lover. Hercule Poirot stood on the narrow cliff path, lantern in hand, the wind whipping his coat around his calves like a restless ghost. Inspector Lefebvre stumbled behind him, cursing the darkness and the goat track that passed for a path. 2 gendarmes followed, their boots slipping on wet stone. They had found no body on the cliffs, no scarlet silk snagged on gorse, no pearl earring glinting in the moonlight. Only a single set of footprints, small, heeled, leading from the boathouse to the edge of the promontory, then vanishing as if the woman had stepped into the air itself. "Suicide!" Lefebvre panted, shining his torch over the void. 20 meters below, the waves churned white. "Or murder twice over," Poirot replied. "The footprints end too neatly. Someone carried her the last few meters, or swept them clean." They descended to the boathouse, a stone structure half swallowed by ivy. The door hung ajar. Inside, the air smelled of tar, petrol, and something metallic. A motor launch bobbed in the slip, its paintwork gleaming. On the pier, a woman's kid glove lay discarded, scarlet leather monogrammed C.V. Poirot picked it up. The fingers were torn, the palm stained dark. Blood? He sniffed. No, ink, black, waterproof, the kind used by journalists or forgers. He slipped the glove into his pocket. Lefebvre examined the launch. Fuel tanks full, keys in the ignition. She was planning to leave. "Or someone wished us to think so," Poirot said. "Come, we return to the villa. Dawn approaches, and with it, the truth." Back at Villa Azur, the household stirred like a beast waking from a nightmare. Servants whispered in corridors. Guests peered from behind half-closed doors. Poirot dispatched Lefebvre to guard the boathouse and stationed a gendarme at the cliff path. Then he sought the Comtesse. She was in the winter garden again, this time pruning dead leaves from a camellia with surgical precision. The white roses from the night before lay wilted in a bucket. "Madame," Poirot began, "tell me of Clarissa Vale. Everything." Isolde set down the secateurs. "There is little to tell. An English girl, pretty, ambitious. Met Reginald in London last season. He brought her to the Riviera as decoration. She spoke of a career on the stage, but I think she preferred the protection of wealthy men. Yet she arrived with no luggage. A habit of hers. She travelled light, said suitcases were for women who planned to stay. Clarissa never planned to stay." Poirot produced the scarlet glove. "This was in the boathouse, and these," he laid the 2 pearl earrings on the table, side by side. "One from the balcony, one from room 12's windowsill, identical. Yet you said she lost one weeks ago." The Comtesse's eyes flickered. Perhaps she lied. Women do, about jewellery. Or someone replaced the lost earring to create confusion. Poirot leaned closer. "Madam, the initial CV, could they stand for another name?" Isolde hesitated. There was a rumour. Clarissa's mother was Russian, illegitimate daughter of a Grand Duke, some say. Her real name might have been Voronina, but she denied it. Voronina, Count Alexei Voronin's surname. Poirot's mind raced. A half-sister, a cousin, a lover playing a deeper game. He thanked the Comtesse and sought Captain Hale, finding him in the gun-room cleaning a service revolver with mechanical precision. "Captain," Poirot said, "you were Mrs. Langford's escort last night. Yet you spent time on the lower cliffs earlier this week. Why?" Hale's hands stilled. "Scouting landing sites. The Royal Navy's interested in the coves here. Smuggling routes." "Smuggling?" Poirot repeated. "Antiquities, perhaps? Through Seawitch?" Hale's jaw tightened. "I can't discuss operations. But you can discuss murder. You were seen arguing with Victor Langford 3 days ago, at the casino in Nice, about his wife?" Hale slammed the revolver down. "Victor was a cad. He'd promised Evelyn divorce, then reneged when the money ran out. I warned him to leave her alone. With a fist?" Hale flexed his knuckles, bruised, Poirot noted. "He swung first. I defended myself." Poirot nodded. "And Clarissa Vale, you knew her in London?" A flicker of surprise. "Briefly. She moved in Evelyn's circle, acted as go-between when Victor's affairs grew messy." "Go-between," Poirot mused, "or accomplice?" Hale's face darkened, but before he could reply, Daphne Blaine appeared in the doorway pale as milk. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I must show you something in Papa's study." Sir Reginald was absent, summoned to the police station for a statement. The study was locked, but Daphne produced a key from her pocket. "I stole it," she confessed. "Papa would kill me." Inside, the room smelled of tobacco and secrets. Daphne went straight to a safe behind a portrait of Queen Victoria. The combination was her birthday. The door swung open. Inside, ledgers, cash, and a bundle of photographs tied with red ribbon, the same ribbon as the letters in Clarissa's room. Poirot untied it. The photographs were compromising. Victor Langford in a Monte Carlo hotel with a woman whose face was turned away, but whose scarlet dress was unmistakable. Another showed Count Voronin handing Victor an envelope thick with banknotes. A third, most damning, depicted Evelyn Langford and Captain Hale embracing on the deck of Seawitch, time-stamped 3 weeks ago. Daphne's voice trembled. "Clarissa gave these to Papa. She said Victor was selling them to the highest bidder. Papa paid to keep them quiet, because of me. If they were published, I'd be ruined." Poirot's mind whirred. Blackmail on multiple fronts. But who was the puppet master? He examined the photographs closely. In the background of the sea witch image, a figure stood half hidden by the mast, tall, dark-haired, wearing a naval cap. Not Hale, someone else. "Daphne," he said gently, "these photographs were taken from the cliff path. Who has access to a camera with a telephoto lens?" She hesitated. "Clarissa. She was always taking pictures. Said it was for her memoir." Poirot pocketed one photograph, the one with the mysterious figure. "You have been brave, ma petite. Now go to your room and lock the door." As she left, Poirot examined the safe again. At the back, a false panel. Behind it, a small leather pouch. Inside, a diamond necklace, emeralds and pearls worth a fortune. And a note in the same hurried pencil. "Payment for silence. Deliver to CV by midnight, or the photographs go to the press, no signature." But the handwriting matched the balcony notes. Poirot's little grey cells sang. A necklace for silence, photographs for ruin. And at the centre, Clarissa Vale, missing, perhaps dead. He returned to the main balcony as the sun rose, painting the sea gold. The bloodstains had been cleaned, but the dolphin statue remained, its bronze eyes staring eternally at the spot where Victor died. Poirot addressed the statue as if it could hear. "You saw everything, mon ami. The woman in red, the man who pushed, the secret that died with Victor Langford." He examined the statue's base again. The white powder was thicker here, mixed with grains of sand. He scraped a sample. Plaster of Paris, yes, but also flecks of green. Verdigris or something else? A memory stirred. The absinthe spilled during the murder. Green, sticky, luminous under lantern light. He compared the samples mentally. Not absinthe, something artificial. Footsteps behind him. Madame Valenska, wrapped in a sable coat despite the warmth. "You are up early, Monsieur Poirot, or late?" "Time is elastic in murder investigations," he replied. "Madame, you wear fleur de rocaille. Yet the scent lingers in room 12, where Clarissa Vale stayed. Did you visit her?" Valenska's laugh was low. "My dear Poirot, I visit many rooms, but not that one. Clarissa borrowed my perfume. She said hers had spilled on the train." "Borrowed," Poirot repeated, "or stolen?" Valenska's eyes narrowed. "Ask your questions plainly." "Very well. You were Victor Langford's mistress before Evelyn. He ended it when the money ran out. You were seen leaving his cabin on Sea Witch the night these photographs were taken." Valenska's hand went to her throat. "Lies. Photographs do not lie. Only people do." She turned to leave, but Poirot's voice stopped her. "Madame, the white powder on the balcony. It is stage makeup, pancake to be precise. The kind used by actresses to hide bruises or to create them." Valenska froze. "I know nothing of makeup on balconies." "But you know of bruises? On Clarissa's wrist, shaped like fingerprints. Yours?" She whirled, eyes blazing. "Clarissa was a thief and a liar. She stole my necklace, the one in the photographs. I confronted her in the library. She laughed, said Victor had given it to her. We struggled. She ran, through the French windows, to the service balcony." Valenska nodded reluctantly. "I followed, but she was gone, into the night." Poirot's mind reconstructed. Clarissa fleeing Valenska, encountering Victor on the balcony, the confrontation turning deadly. But the bruising on Victor's shoulders, too high for a woman's grip. And the push required strength. He thanked Valenska and sought Count Voronin, finding him in the stables, saddling a horse as if preparing to flee. "Count," Poirot said, "your sister, or cousin Clarissa, she's missing. You were to meet her at midnight. Why? Voronin's hands stilled on the girth. She was not my sister, my protégée. I brought her to the Riviera to infiltrate Langford's circle. She was to retrieve certain documents, proof of my smuggling activities. Victor discovered her, threatened exposure unless I paid. The 5,000 francs? Pocket change, but he wanted more. The necklace, the photographs, everything. Clarissa arranged the meeting to return the documents. I waited in the library. She never came. Poirot produced the burnt scrap. This is your handwriting? Voronin glanced at it. Yes, I wrote it this afternoon. Clarissa was to burn it after reading. Yet it survived, and Clarissa did not. Voronin's face crumpled. You think I killed her? I think someone killed Victor to silence him. And Clarissa either witnessed it, or was silenced too. Voronin sank onto a hay bale. There is more. The documents. She hid them in the dolphin statue. A false compartment in the base. I saw her do it yesterday. Poirot's pulse raced. He returned to the balcony at a run. The statue's base was cemented, but a hairline crack ran around the plinth. He inserted the dolphin paper knife from the library. It turned like a key. The base opened. Inside, a waterproof pouch. Documents, shipping manifests, forged antiquities certificates, a list of buyers including Sir Reginald Blaine. And a final photograph. Clarissa Vale, alive, standing on the balcony at 11:55, Victor Langford behind her, his hands on her shoulders. In the background, the fireworks beginning. The timestamp, 11:55, 2 minutes before the supposed time of death. Poirot stared. Victor had not been alone. Clarissa had been with him, willingly or not. The bruising on his shoulders, her hands, or someone else's. He examined the photograph closely. In the corner, a reflection in the French windows. A figure in naval uniform, face obscured. Captain Hale? The sea breeze shifted, carrying a faint scent, fleurs de rocaille and something metallic. Blood. Poirot looked down. At the base of the statue, fresh scratches in the terrazzo, and a single drop of blood still wet. Someone had been here. Recently. He straightened, the pieces falling into place. Clarissa alive at 11:55. Victor dead at 11:57. The watch stopped deliberately. The footprints ending at the cliff. The launch prepared but not used. A staged disappearance. He returned to the villa, summoning everyone to the drawing room. The Comtesse, Sir Reginald, Daphne, Captain Hale, Madame Valenska, Count Voronin. Even Evelyn Langford, pale but composed. Poirot stood before the fireplace. Mesdames et messieurs, the secrets of the sea breeze are thus. Victor Langford was murdered to prevent exposure of a smuggling ring. Clarissa Vale was his accomplice and his victim. But she did not die. She staged her disappearance to escape justice, or to protect someone. He produced the photograph. Gasps rippled through the room. Clarissa took this seconds before Victor's death. She was not pushed. She pushed him, then fled down the service balcony to the boathouse, leaving clues to suggest suicide. The footprints, the glove, the launch, all theatre. Evelyn Langford stood. You're mad. Clarissa was alive, Poirot finished, and in this room. He turned to Daphne Blaine. Mademoiselle, remove your shawl. Daphne hesitated, then let the cashmere fall. Beneath, she wore a scarlet dress. Clarissa's dress stained with ink and blood. Her hair, previously pinned up, now hung loose, dark and curling. Clarissa Vale, Poirot said softly. Or should I say, Daphne Voronina, the Count's niece, the girl who played 2 roles to perfection. The room erupted. Sir Reginald lunged forward, but Hale restrained him. Voronin stared, stricken. Daphne, Clarissa, smiled, a small, sad smile. You are clever, Monsieur Poirot, too clever. She reached into her pocket and produced a small derringer, but the game is not over. Chapter 5. The Alibi Puzzle. The derringer was small, almost a toy, but its barrel glinted with lethal intent. Daphne. Blaine, no, Clarissa Vale, held it steady, her knuckles white against the scarlet silk. The drawing room, moments ago a tableau of shock, now froze into a diorama of fear. The Comtesse's hand flew to her diamonds. Sir Reginald's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Count Veronin took one involuntary step forward, then stopped as Clarissa's eyes flicked to him. "Stay where you are, uncle," she said, her voice stripped of the girlish tremor she had affected as Daphne. It was lower now, edged with steel. "This ends my way." Hercule Poirot did not flinch. He stood between the fireplace and the assemblage, his small frame impeccably still, hands clasped behind his back. Only his eyes moved, green, bright, unblinking. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "a gun is a crude solution to an elegant problem. Put it down. You have played your part brilliantly. Why spoil the performance with melodrama?" Clarissa's laugh was brittle. "Performance? This was survival, Monsieur Poirot. Victor was a parasite. He bled us all, Uncle Alexei, Papa, Evelyn. When he threatened to expose the smuggling ring, he signed his own death warrant." "Yet you were his accomplice," Poirot countered. "The photographs, the documents in the dolphin statue, your work. You seduced, you spied, you blackmailed. And when Victor demanded more, you pushed him from the balcony. But the alibi, that is the masterpiece. 2 girls, 1 identity, Daphne and Clarissa, never in the same room. A classic conjurer's trick." Inspector Lefebvre, who had entered quietly during the revelation, now edged toward the door, signaling his gendarmes. Clarissa's gaze snapped to him. "Don't," she warned. "I'll shoot the first man who moves." Poirot raised a hand. "Inspector, patience. Mademoiselle Vale has a story to finish. Let her speak. The truth, once told, cannot be untied." Clarissa's eyes glittered with unshed tears. Or triumph. "You want the timeline? Fine. I arrived as Daphne Blaine, Sir Reginald's innocent daughter, 3 days ago. Clarissa Vale was a fiction. My creation, my mask. I used the service corridors, the hidden staircases, makeup, wigs, a change of dress. 10 minutes to transform. The staff saw what they expected. The shy English girl, or the brazen adventuress. Never both." She gestured to the photographs Poirot had laid on the table. "I took these from the cliffs with a telephoto lens. Victor thought he was clever, hiding his affairs on Sea Witch. I was cleverer. I sold the prints to the highest bidder. Uncle Alexei paid to keep his smuggling quiet. Sir Reginald paid to protect Daphne's reputation. Even Evelyn paid, though she didn't know it was me." Evelyn Langford rose, trembling. "You little— Sit down!" Clarissa snapped. The derringer swung toward her. Evelyn sank back. Poirot's voice was silk. "Continue, mademoiselle. The night of the murder. You were Daphne at the fireworks with your— father. Then what?" Clarissa's smile was thin. "At 11:50, I excused myself. Powder room. I slipped through the library's French windows to the service balcony. Changed into Clarissa's red dress in the boathouse, everything prepared. Climbed back up. Victor was waiting by the dolphin statue, drunk and furious. He'd found the documents I'd hidden there. Threatened to burn them unless I paid double." She paused, her breath hitching. "We argued. He grabbed me, here." She touched her wrist where faint bruises showed. "I pushed him away. He stumbled, hit the balustrade. I shoved harder. He went over. The fireworks covered the scream." Poirot nodded. "And the watch?" "I stopped it at 11:57 as I leaned over him, to confuse the timeline. Then I tore my dress deliberately, left the silk in the statue's mouth, the earring on the sill. dropped the glove in the boathouse, staged the footprints to the cliff edge. 10 minutes later, I was Daphne again, rejoining Papa just as the body was discovered. Count Veronin spoke for the first time, his voice raw. "You killed him for money?" "For freedom," Clarissa corrected. "Victor would have ruined us all. With him gone, the photographs lose their power. The smuggling continues. I disappear. New name, new life." Poirot's moustache twitched. "But the alibis. 30 witnesses saw Daphne with Sir Reginald at 11:58. How?" Clarissa's eyes gleamed. "Papa lied. He thought I was beside him, but I'd slipped away earlier. The fireworks were bright, everyone looking up. I returned during the commotion. He never noticed the gap." Sir Reginald made a strangled sound. "You used me! You used me!" Clarissa shot back. "Parading your bastard daughter as legitimate to secure your precious merger. I was your shield, Papa. Now I'm your noose." Poirot stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "One flaw, mademoiselle. The white powder, stage makeup. You used it to age Daphne's hands, to bruise Clarissa's wrist, but traces remained on the balustrade. And the blood drop this morning. Fresh. You returned to the statue to retrieve the documents, yes? But why risk it?" Clarissa's hand wavered. "The documents name buyers. I needed them gone. Yet you left the photographs, careless." "I was interrupted," she admitted. "Madame Valenska followed me. We fought again. She tore the necklace from my throat, the one Victor gave me. I scratched her. She ran." Madame Valenska touched her cheek, where a fresh scratch marred her makeup. "Liar! You attacked me!" "Enough," Poirot said. "The puzzle is complete but for one piece. Captain Hale, your alibi is ironclad. You were with Evelyn when Victor fell. Yet you knew Clarissa's game. Why protect her?" Hale's face was stone. "I didn't. I suspected. Clarissa approached me weeks ago. Offered the photographs of Evelyn and me in exchange for silence. I refused. Last night, I saw her on the service balcony as Daphne. I said nothing, thought it a lover's tryst. Only when Victor died did I realize." Poirot turned back to Clarissa. "And the scream on the cliffs? Another performance?" She shrugged. "A recording. I played it from the boathouse to lure the searchers away. The launch was a decoy. I planned to swim to the next cove at dawn, meet a fishing boat." "Clever," Poirot conceded, "but the sea breeze carries sense. Fleur de rocaille on Daphne's shawl this morning. Clarissa's perfume, a mistake." Clarissa's composure cracked. "One mistake. You'll never prove the rest." "Oh, but I will," Poirot said. He produced the dolphin paper knife. "This opened the statue's base. Your fingerprints are on it. Clarissa's, not Daphne's. The glove in the boathouse, ink on the fingers from forging the manifests. And the blood drop, tested by Dr. Laurent, typo, matching the scratch on Victor's palm. You cut yourself during the struggle." Clarissa's arm trembled. The derringer dipped. Poirot's voice was gentle. "It is finished, mademoiselle. The little grey cells have spoken. Put down the gun." For a moment, she wavered. Then, with a cry of rage, she swung the weapon toward Poirot. Inspector Lefebvre moved like lightning. A gendarme's arm locked around her wrist. The derringer clattered to the parquet. Clarissa fought wildly, nails raking, but she was no match for trained men. Within seconds she was handcuffed, her scarlet dress torn, her face streaked with tears and defiance. "You think this ends it?" she spat as they dragged her away. "The smuggling ring is bigger than Victor, bigger than me. Others will rise." Poirot watched her go, then turned to the stunned assembly. "The alibi puzzle is solved. Clarissa Vale played 2 roles, crafted perfect alibis for both. But perfection is the enemy of truth. One scent, One fingerprint, one drop of blood, the little details betray. He addressed Sir Reginald. Monsieur, your daughter, your real daughter, where is she? Blaine's face crumpled. Boarding school in Switzerland. Clarissa. She took Daphne's place for the summer. I thought it harmless, a favour to Alexei. God help me. Count Veronin sank into a chair, head in hands. She was my brother's child. I thought to give her a future. Instead, I gave her a grave. Evelyn Langford stood, composed now. And my husband's murder? Justice will be served, Poirot assured her. Clarissa will confess. The evidence is overwhelming. But the smuggling ring, that is for Captain Hale and the authorities. Hale nodded grimly. We've been watching Seawitch for months. Clarissa's documents will break it wide open. The Comtesse, who had remained silent, now spoke. And the necklace? The one Clarissa wore? Poirot produced it from his pocket, the emeralds and pearls gleaming. Stolen from Madame Valenska, yes? Return. It, madame. Some secrets are best buried with their owners. Valenska took it wordlessly, her fingers closing around the jewels like claws. Poirot surveyed the room. The fire had burned low. Dawn light filtered through the windows, gilding the wreckage of the night. The balcony has claimed its toll, but order is restored. The little grey cells, they are content. As the guests dispersed, some to pack, some to police cars, Poirot lingered by the window. The sea was calm now, the breeze gentle. He inhaled the salt air, tasting freedom and finality. Behind him, Captain Hale approached. Poirot, there's one thing, the scream recording, where is it? Poirot smiled. In the boathouse, hidden in the launch's glove box. A gramophone disc, scratched but playable, Clarissa's final performance. Hale shook his head. She was brilliant, terrifyingly so. Brilliance without conscience is a dangerous thing, Poirot replied. But even the cleverest conjurer leaves a trace. The alibi puzzle is no more. He stepped onto the balcony. The dolphin statue gleamed in the morning sun, its secret compartment empty, its bronze eyes blind to the drama it had witnessed. Poirot patted its flank. Merci, mon ami. You kept your secrets well. Far below, the waves lapped the rocks where Victor Langford had died. The sea, indifferent, carried away the last echoes of the night. The puzzle was solved. But in the distance, Poirot heard the faint thrum of a motor launch, Seawitch perhaps, slipping its moorings. The smuggling ring was broken, but its ghosts lingered. He turned back to the villa. There was coffee to be drunk, statements to be signed, and a train to catch. The little grey cells, for now, were at rest. Chapter 6. Whispers in the Night. The villa slept, or pretended to. At 2:30 in the morning, the corridors of Villa Azure were lit only by the occasional wall sconce left burning for the sake of decorum, its flame trembling inside frosted glass like a guilty conscience. Hercule Poirot moved through the hush on soundless patent leather soles. A small, dark figure carrying no light. He had no need of one. The plan of the house was already etched behind his closed eyelids, every turn, every door, every creaking board. He paused outside the service stair that spiraled down from the second floor to the old scullery. A draught rose from below, carrying the smell of damp stone and something sharper. Coal tar soap and the ghost of gun oil. Someone had passed this way recently. And not a servant. Poirot descended. The stair ended in a narrow passage lit by a single red bulb, the dark room the Comtesse kept for her amateur photography. The door stood ajar. Inside, a tray of developing fluid rocked gently, disturbed. Poirot slipped in, closed the door to a finger's width, and waited. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, came from the far end of the passage. A silhouette paused, listened, then pushed open the darkroom door. The red bulb painted the newcomer's face the colour of fresh blood. Captain Marcus Hale. He did not see Poirot at first. He crossed to the sink, turned the tap with a gloved hand, and rinsed something small and metallic under the stream. A revolver cylinder, Poirot noted. Hale dried it on a towel, then opened a drawer and lifted out a box of 38 cartridges. He loaded 6 rounds, snapped the cylinder shut, and slipped the weapon into his pocket. Only then did he sense he was not alone. "Looking for something, Captain?" Poirot asked mildly. Hale spun, hand on the butt of the revolver. Recognition flickered, then wariness. "Poirot, you should be asleep." "Sleep is for the innocent, or the exhausted. I am neither." Poirot stepped into the red glow. "You are reloading a Webley Mark IV, naval issue. Curious for a man whose alibi was accepted hours ago." Hale's jaw worked. "Precaution. Clarissa may not have acted alone. Or you fear the whispers you heard tonight." Poirot tilted his head. "Shall I tell you what they said?" He did not wait for permission. First whisper. At midnight, while Clarissa staged her double performance, someone else used the service corridors. Footprints and coal dust. Size 10, naval boot, left heel worn. Yours, I think. Hale's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Second whisper. The boathouse. The launch's engine was warm at 3 a.m., though no one admits to starting it. Petrol fumes on your cuffs, Captain. Coincidence? Third whisper. The darkroom. You develop your own film, yes? Naval intelligence habit. Tonight you printed a photograph taken from the cliff path at 11:56 p.m., 1 minute before Victor Langford fell. A photograph that shows you on the service balcony watching Clarissa push him. Hale's hand tightened on the revolver. Blackmail. Observation, Poirot corrected. You saw the murder. You did not intervene. Why? Silence stretched, thin as the red bulb's filament. Then Hale exhaled, a sound like a sail collapsing. Because Victor Langford was already dead the moment Clarissa agreed to meet him. I knew what she planned. I encouraged it. Poirot's moustache did not move, but his eyes gleamed. Explain. Hale leaned against the developing table. 6 months ago, naval intelligence recruited me to infiltrate the smuggling ring. Sea Witch was the courier vessel. Victor Langford was the moneyman, Count Veronin the supplier, Sir Reginald the silent partner. Clarissa, Daphne, whatever name she used, was their photographer, their lure, their cutout. He opened the drawer again and drew out a contact sheet. Under the red light, Poirot saw a strip of negatives. The same images he had found in the dolphin statue, but with additional frames. One showed Hale himself handing Victor an envelope on the casino terrace. Another showed Evelyn Langford kissing Hale in the shadow of the yacht's funnel. Clarissa took these. Hale continued. She was playing every side. When Victor demanded a final payoff, 500,000 francs or he'd sink the ring, she decided to sink him instead. I let her. One corpse ties up every loose end. Poirot studied the negatives. And your silence? I was to arrest the survivors at dawn. Veronin, Blaine, the Comtesse, if she was complicit. With Clarissa in custody, the ring collapses. Victor's death was convenient. Convenient, Poirot echoed. Yet you reload your revolver at 3 a.m. because convenience has turned to fear. Hale's laugh was bitter. Clarissa talked before Lefebvre took her away. She told him I ordered the murder. That I gave her the push from behind. She has a letter, forged but convincing. If it reaches the procureur, I'm finished. Poirot's voice was soft. Where is this letter? Hidden in the one place no one has searched. The Comtesse's darkroom safe, behind the developing trays. Hale gestured to a small wall safe, its dial barely visible in the red gloom. Combination 182709, her first husband's birthday. Poirot moved to the safe, spun the dial with delicate precision. The door opened. Inside, a stack of undeveloped film, a passport in the name of Clarissa Voronina, and a single envelope addressed to Inspector Principal Nice. Poirot slit it open. Captain Hale ordered the murder of Victor Langford to protect the smuggling ring and his affair with Evelyn Langford. I acted under duress. The push was his hands on my shoulders. See enclosed photograph. CV, the enclosed photograph, was a print. Hale and Clarissa on the service balcony, his hands indeed on her shoulders. But the angle made it impossible to tell if he was pushing or restraining. A perfect ambiguity. Clever, Poirot murmured. She ensured herself. If captured, you fall with her. Hale's face was grim. I need that letter. You need the truth, Poirot said. He slipped the envelope into his breast pocket. Come, we wake the household. They moved through the corridors like conspirators. Hale's revolver now holstered, Poirot's steps light. On the first-floor landing, a door opened a crack. Evelyn Langford peered out, hair loose, eyes wide. Marcus, what's happening? Go back to bed, Evelyn, Hale said roughly. She stepped into the hall instead, wrapping a silk robe around her. I heard voices. Clarissa, she said things about you, about us. Poirot regarded her with sympathy. Madame, your husband's death has liberated you, but liberty has a price. Captain Hale protected you, perhaps too well. Evelyn's hand went to her throat. He didn't kill Victor. I would know. Would you? Poirot asked gently. Love is blind, madame, but photographs are not. He led them to the winter garden, where moonlight silvered the camellias. The Comtesse was already there, fully dressed, a cigarette burning between her fingers. Couldn't sleep either, she asked dryly. The villa is restless tonight. Poirot did not answer. He crossed to the grand piano, lifted the lid, and pressed middle C. The note rang out, pure and clear. Then he pressed it again, duller, muffled. He lifted the felt cover. Beneath, taped to the soundboard, was a small reel-to-reel tape recorder, its spools still turning slowly. The scream from the cliffs. Clarissa's insurance policy, Poirot said. She recorded everything, conversations, threats, the murder itself. This tape would have played automatically at dawn, broadcasting through the villa's intercom. A final performance. He stopped the reels. Silence fell, broken only by the tick of the ormolu clock. The Comtesse exhaled smoke. And now? Now, Poirot said, we confront the last whisper. He led them to the library. The French windows stood open to the service balcony. On the threshold lay a single white gardenia, its petals bruised. Poirot picked it up, still warm from someone's hand. They stepped outside. The night was velvet, the sea a murmur below. Halfway along the balcony, a figure waited in the shadow of the drainpipe. Count Alexei Voronin, a suitcase at his feet, a pistol in his hand. Going somewhere, Count? Poirot asked. Voronin's smile was tired. Monte Carlo owes me a new life. Clarissa's arrest ends the old one. You leave your niece to face the guillotine? She chose her path. Voronin's gaze flicked to Hale. As did our naval friend. Tell me, Captain, did you enjoy watching my niece push Langford, or were you merely taking notes for your report? Hale's hand moved to his revolver. Poirot raised a warning finger. Count, Poirot said, you smuggled antiquities for 3 years. Sir Reginald laundered the money. Clarissa documented everything. But the night of the murder, you were not in the library as you claimed. You were here, on this balcony, at 11:55. The gardenia in your buttonhole left pollen on the drainpipe. I have the sample." Voronin's pistol wavered. "You cannot prove. I can prove you hesitated. You saw Clarissa push Victor. You could have stopped her. Instead, you fled, down this pipe to the boathouse, where you started the launch to create a diversion. Then back up, changed clothes, and rejoined the party as the shocked aristocrat. Your cufflinks mismatched last night because you dressed in haste." Voronin's shoulders sagged. "She is blood, Poirot, my brother's child. I thought, if Victor died, the ring survived. I was wrong." Sir Reginald appeared in the library doorway, dishevelled, eyes wild. "Alexei, you bastard! You promised the merger would—" "Silence!" Poirot snapped. "Monsieur Blaine, your ledger in the safe shows payments to Voronin totalling £200,000. You bought silence with your daughter's future. Now you will buy it with your own." He turned to the Comtesse. "And you, Madame, your darkroom safe held the forged passport. You planned to spirit Clarissa away after the murder. Why?" Isolde crushed her cigarette beneath her heel. "Because I am tired of men's wars. Victor was a fool, but Clarissa was useful. With him gone, I could sell the villa, vanish, start again." Poirot surveyed them all. Hale, Evelyn, Voronin, Blaine, the Comtesse, like pieces on a chessboard. "The whispers are silenced," he said. "Each of you heard a different secret, acted on a different lie. Clarissa's tape records every confession. The letter implicating Captain Hale is a forgery, her final flourish. The true murderer pushed Victor alone. The rest of you merely watched." He produced the reel-to-reel tape and the forged letter. "Inspector Lefebvre will take these at dawn. The smuggling ring ends tonight." Voronin raised his pistol, not at Poirot, but at his own temple. "Then I end with it." "No," Poirot said sharply. "You will face justice, Count, for your niece's sake." Hale stepped forward, disarmed Voronin with practised ease. The Count did not resist. As dawn stained the sky rose, Poirot stood alone on the service balcony. The gardenia lay crushed in his hand. Below, the sea carried away the night's secrets, one by one. He murmured to the wind, "Whispers in the night, how fragile they are, until the little grey cells give them voice." Behind him, the villa stirred. Footsteps, voices, the clatter of handcuffs. The game was not yet over, but the board was cleared. Poirot descended to meet the morning. Chapter 7. The Poisoned Chalice. The breakfast room of Villa Azur faced east, and at 7:30 the sun poured through the tall windows like molten gold, striking the silver coffee pots and the crystal decanters until they blazed. Yet the light did nothing to warm the faces around the table. The guests sat in a silence that felt ceremonial, as though they were mourners at a wake for the villa itself. Hercule Poirot entered last, immaculate in dove grey, his cane tapping a measured rhythm on the parquet. Inspector Lefebvre followed, flanked by two gendarmes whose boots rang like gunshots. On the sideboard lay a single object under a linen napkin, a cut crystal goblet, its stem snapped clean in two. Poirot lifted the napkin. The goblet had held absinthe the night before. Now a faint green residue clung to the inside, luminous as poison. Beside it lay a small glass vial, corked, half full of a cloudy liquid. A label, handwritten in violet ink, read, "Pour Viel, avec amour." "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot announced, "we gather not for croissants, but for clarity. The murder of Victor Langford was never about a push from a balcony. That was theatre. The true weapon was here, in this chalice." A collective intake of breath. Evelyn Langford's hand flew to her throat. Sir Reginald's coffee cup rattled in its saucer. Poirot continued. At 11:42 p.m., Victor Langford drank from this glass. At 11:57 he was dead on the rocks below. The fall killed him, yes, but only because the poison had already begun its work. Without it, he would have fought, screamed, clung to the balustrade. Instead, he toppled like a marionette with cut strings. He lifted the vial. Thujaune, distilled from wormwood, concentrated to lethal potency. Odorless in absinthe, tasteless when masked by anise and sugar. A single mouthful paralyzes the diaphragm within 10 minutes. The victim feels drunk, then dizzy, then nothing. The perfect murder, until one examines the glass. Lefebvre cleared his throat. Dr. Laurent's preliminary autopsy confirms respiratory failure prior to trauma. Thujaune levels in the blood are astronomical. Poirot nodded. The goblet was one of a set commissioned by the Comtesse for her absinthe soirée. Each stem is engraved with a tiny initial. This one bears a VL, Victor's personal glass, a gift from his wife on their anniversary. Someone filled it, knowing only he would drink from it. He turned to Evelyn. "Madame, you poured the absinthe last night. You handed Victor his glass." Evelyn's voice was a thread. Yes, but it was already prepared." Henri brought the tray. The butler, standing rigid by the door, bowed. "The tray was assembled in the pantry, monsieur. Absinthe, sugar, water, spoons. I carried it to the balcony at 11:40. No one touched the glasses after that." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "No one you saw. Yet the pantry has a side door to the service corridor. Someone entered, added the Thujaune, and left. Footprints in spilled sugar. Size 7, narrow heel, a woman's shoe." Madame Valenska, who had been silent, now laughed, a low, bitter sound. "Always the woman, eh, Poirot? Because we are jealous, or greedy, or scorned?" "Or clever," Poirot replied. "You, madame, distill your own absinthe. Your dressing-room contains wormwood oil, funnels, pipettes, and your motive. Victor ended your affair when Evelyn's fortune proved larger. You vowed revenge in Monte Carlo. I have the telegram." He produced a yellow slip. "He will drink regret before the month is out." V. Valenska's face drained of colour. "Anyone could have sent that." "Anyone with your handwriting," Poirot said. "The slant of the R, the loop of the Y, identical to the label on the vial." Count Voronin stirred. "But Valenska was in the powder room at 11:42. I saw her leave the balcony." "Indeed," Poirot said. "She left at 11:38, entered the pantry via the service corridor, added the poison, and returned at 11:45. Powder fresh, lips repainted. 5 minutes. The sugar on the floor was brushed away with a napkin, but grains remained in the tread of her slipper. I have the slipper." He gestured to Lefebvre, who produced a velvet evening shoe. Its sole dusted with white crystals. Valenska's composure cracked. "You cannot prove I intended murder. A prank, perhaps. Thujaune, at that concentration is no prank," Poirot said. "It is assassination. But you are not the only hand on the chalice." He turned to Sir Reginald. "Monsieur, you insured Victor's life for 1,000,000 francs, payable to Seawitch Enterprises, your company. With Victor dead, the policy pays, the yacht is yours, the smuggling debts vanish. You stood to gain the most." Blaine's jowls trembled. "I was with Daphne, Clarissa, during the fireworks." "Clarissa was elsewhere," Poirot reminded him. "You were alone for 3 crucial minutes, 11:41 to 11:44, long enough to slip into the pantry, add a second dose, cyanide perhaps to ensure death. The vial in the goblet contained traces of both Thujaune and cyanide. 2 poisons, 2 killers." Gasps rippled around the table. Poirot lifted a second vial, smaller, labelled in black ink, for VL, final payment. "Cyanide crystals," he said, "dissolved in absinthe, They leave a faint almond scent. I smelled it on Victor's breath during my examination. Sir Reginald, your fountain pen leaks. The ink on this label matches the stain on your cuff." Blaine surged to his feet. "This is monstrous! Sit!" Lefebvre barked. The gendarmes moved forward. Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. But the chalice was poisoned 3 times. He produced a third vial, corked, empty. Strychnine, added at 11:39 by Count Verona. You entered the pantry through the scullery, Count, carrying a bottle of vintage chartreuse. You poured a splash into Victor's glass to mask the bitterness. Your fingerprints are on the bottle, your monogram on the handkerchief used to wipe the rim. Voronin's aristocratic face crumpled. I only meant to sicken him, to frighten him into silence. The smuggling ring was your livelihood, Poirot finished. But Victor threatened to expose you to the Greek authorities. Strychnine would convulse him, make the fall look like a seizure. A heart attack, perhaps. You did not intend murder, only ruin. He surveyed the 3 poisoners, Valenska, Blaine, Voronin, each pale, each trembling. 3 poisons, 3 motives, 1 victim. Valenska's jealousy, Blaine's greed, Voronin's fear. The thujone acted first, paralyzing Victor. The cyanide accelerated death. The strychnine never had time to convulse him. He was pushed, by Clarissa, to ensure the fall masked the poisoning, a perfect conspiracy, unintended. Evelyn Langford stood, tears streaking her face, and I handed him the glass. My God, I killed him. No, Poirot said gently. You served death, but you did not prepare it. The chalice was poisoned before it reached your hands. Captain Hale, who had entered quietly, now spoke. Naval intelligence suspected multiple attempts. We monitored the absinthe. But Clarissa's push complicated everything. She saw the poisoning, realized the fall would hide it, and acted. Poirot nodded. Clarissa was the catalyst, not the architect. She pushed a dying man. The true murderers are here. He turned to the Comtesse, who had watched the drama with detachment. Madame, you knew. Your darkroom safe held the empty strychnine bottle, labelled as photographic fixer. You supplied Voronin. Why? Isolde lit a cigarette with steady fingers. Because Victor planned to sell the villa to Americans. My home, my sanctuary. I would rather see him dead than displaced. Poirot's eyes softened, and so the chalice passed from hand to hand, each adding a drop of death, a tragedy of greed and fear. He gestured to Lefebvre. Arrest them all. Valenska for thujone, Blaine for cyanide, Voronin for strychnine, the Comtesse for accessory. Clarissa's confession will corroborate the push. As the gendarmes moved, Valenska laughed suddenly, a wild, broken sound. We are all poisoners, then. The Riviera itself is the chalice. Blaine lunged for the broken goblet, perhaps to destroy evidence, but Hale restrained him. Voronin merely bowed his head. The Comtesse crushed her cigarette beneath her heel, untouched. Poirot addressed the room. The poisoned chalice is empty now, but its lesson remains. When many hands stir the pot, the broth is always fatal. He lifted the goblet's stem, snapped clean as a bone. Order is restored. The little grey cells have traced every drop. Outside, the sun climbed higher, gilding the sea. The balcony waited, innocent in the light, its dolphin statue gleaming. Poirot stepped onto it one last time, inhaling the salt breeze. The chalice was broken, the poison spent, but the taste lingered bitter as wormwood on the tongue of everyone who had sipped from it. Chapter 8. Twists of Fate. The mist clung to the cliffs like a mourner's veil. When Hercule Poirot stepped onto the balcony at dawn, the sea below was the colour of tarnished pewter, and the dolphin statue stood sentinel, its bronze eyes dulled by salt. Behind him, the villa's windows were shuttered. The arrests had been made in the small hours, and Villa Azur now felt less like a palace than a mausoleum. Poirot carried a small leather case. Inside lay the 3 poison vials, the broken goblet, the forged letter, and most damning of all, a single sheet of onion skin paper recovered from the darkroom safe. It was a birth certificate, yellowed with age, issued in Odessa, 1906. The child's name, Clarissa Isolde Voronina. Mother, Comtesse Isolde de Rochefort. Father, unknown, the twist that changed everything. He had found it at 4:17 a.m. after the Comtesse had been led away in handcuffs. The safe's false bottom had yielded to the dolphin paper knife. The certificate had fluttered out like a dying moth. Poirot had read it once, then again, his little grey cells igniting like a string of fireworks. Mother and daughter. The Comtesse and Clarissa, bound not by conspiracy, but by blood. Now, as the mist thinned, he heard footsteps. Captain Hale emerged from the library's French windows, his naval cloak damp with dew. His face was haggard, the bruise on his jaw from Blaine's futile punch livid in the grey light. "You were right," Hale said without preamble. Clarissa confessed everything before Lefebvre took her to Nice. The push, the poisons, the double identity. But she said one thing that doesn't fit. He hesitated. She claimed the Comtesse ordered Victor's death to protect her, Clarissa, that the poisons were a distraction, the fall the real method, a mother's sacrifice. Poirot's moustache twitched. "And you believe her? I don't know what to believe." Hale rubbed his eyes. "But there's more. The real Daphne Blaine, Sir Reginald's legitimate daughter, is dead. Died of pneumonia in Switzerland last winter. Clarissa took her place with the Comtesse's help. Forged letters, bribes to the school. They planned it for months." Poirot nodded slowly. A twist of fate indeed. The Comtesse, widowed thrice, childless in the eyes of the world, discovers a daughter born of a youthful indiscretion. She brings her to the Riviera, grooms her as an instrument of revenge against the man who threatened their world, Victor Langford. But the daughter surpasses the mother. Clarissa becomes the spider, the Comtesse merely the web. He opened the leather case and laid the birth certificate on the balustrade. The ink had faded, but the seal of the Russian Empire was still visible. This is why the Comtesse supplied the strychnine. Not to save the villa, but to save her child from Victor's blackmail. He had discovered the truth, threatened to expose Clarissa as illegitimate, the Comtesse as an adulteress. In 1925, such scandals still destroy. Hale stared at the document. "So Clarissa pushed Victor to protect her mother?" "Non," Poirot said. "Clarissa pushed Victor to protect herself. The Comtesse's motive was maternal. Clarissa's was survival. But there is another twist." He produced a second document, a telegram sent from Monte Carlo 3 days before the murder. The text was in Russian, but Poirot translated aloud. "Daughter, the wolf is at the door. He knows everything. The balcony at midnight. End it. Maman." Hale's breath caught. The Comtesse ordered the push? "She ordered a confrontation," Poirot corrected, "but Clarissa chose murder. The poisons were already in the glass. Valenska's thujone, Blaine's cyanide, Voronin's strychnine. Clarissa saw Victor drink, saw him stagger, and seized the moment. One push, and the poisons were masked by the fall. A perfect crime, until the mother's love left traces." He gestured to the dolphin statue. "The Comtesse hid the telegram here, in the secret compartment with the smuggling documents. She thought to destroy them after the murder. But Clarissa retrieved them first. Insurance against her mother's betrayal." Hale's voice was hoarse, and the scream on the cliffs. Clarissa's recording, yes, but the Comtesse played it from the boathouse at 3:12 a.m. after I found the birth certificate. She hoped to lure me away, give Clarissa time to escape. Mother and daughter still conspiring, even in cuffs. Poirot folded the documents carefully. The twists of fate are these: a secret daughter, a forged identity, a mother's desperate love, a daughter's ruthless ambition. The poisons were a chorus, the push was the solo, but the conductor was blood. He turned to the sea. The mist was lifting now, revealing the rocks where Victor had died. A fishing boat chugged past, its nets trailing like funeral shrouds. "There is one final twist," Poirot said quietly. "Evelyn Langford." Hale stiffened. "She's innocent. She poured the glass, but—" "She knew," Poirot interrupted. "Not the poisons, perhaps, but the affair between Clarissa and Victor. She saw them on the balcony at 11:50 arguing. She followed, saw Clarissa push him, and said nothing. Why?" Hale's face crumpled. "Because she loved me. Victor's death freed her to marry me. She thought if she stayed silent, the police would blame the fall on accident or suicide." Poirot's eyes were sad. "Love makes accomplices of us all, but silence is a poison too." He led Hale back inside. The breakfast room was empty now, the coffee cold. On the table lay a single white gardenia, Clarissa's calling card, left by the Comtesse during her arrest. Poirot picked it up, inhaled its cloying sweetness. "Captain, you will arrest Evelyn Langford for withholding evidence, the Comtesse for conspiracy and accessory to murder. Clarissa's sentence will be commuted, perhaps to exile. A mother's love may yet save her daughter's life, if not her freedom." Hale nodded grimly. "And the smuggling ring?" "Broken. The documents name every buyer from Athens to New York. See which will be seized by noon." Poirot stepped into the corridor. The villa's grandeur felt hollow now, marble echoing like a tomb. He paused at the foot of the grand staircase, where a portrait of the Comtesse in her youth gazed down, diamonds at her throat, eyes already old. "Twists of fate," he murmured. "A daughter born in shame, raised in shadows, kills to protect the mother who abandoned her. A wife betrays her husband for a future that will never come. 3 poisoners brew death, but a child's hand delivers it. And the sea, indifferent, washes the rocks clean." He ascended the stairs to his room. His valise was packed, his train ticket to Paris in his pocket. But before he left, he had one last task. In the library, he opened the safe again. Behind the false panel lay a small velvet box. Inside, a lock of dark hair, tied with a faded ribbon. A baby's curl. On the lid, in the Comtesse's handwriting, "For my Clarissa, my sin, my salvation." Poirot closed the box gently. He would leave it for Lefebvre. Some twists of fate were too intimate for justice. At the railway station in Antibes, the blue train waited, steam curling like incense. Poirot boarded, settled into his compartment, and opened his Morocco notebook. On a fresh page he wrote, "Case closed. Murder by push, masked by poison, born of blood." The chalice was many hands. The hand that struck was one. Fate twists, but truth unravels. He closed the book as the train pulled away. The Riviera receded, villas shrinking to white dots against the blue. Poirot adjusted his Homburg, smoothed his moustache, and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The little grey cells had triumphed again. The twists were straightened, the fates aligned. And somewhere, in a cell in Nice, a mother and daughter waited, bound by love, divided by crime, united by the sea's eternal murmur. Chapter 9. The Gathering Storm. The storm arrived without warning, as if the Mediterranean itself had decided to punish Villa Azur for its sins. By late afternoon, the sky had turned the colour of a fresh bruise, and the wind hurled rain against the balconies in horizontal sheets. Thunder rolled in from the open sea, each clap shaking the crystal chandeliers until they chimed like funeral bells. The guests, though still free, were confined to the winter garden, a glass-walled conservatory that groaned under the assault. Palms thrashed in their pots. Water streamed down the panes in silver rivers. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, small and immaculate despite the chaos. His dove-grey suit was dry. He had not left the villa since dawn, but his eyes were stormy. In his hand he held a telegram, newly delivered by a soaked messenger who had nearly lost his motorcycle on the Corniche road. Inspector Lefebvre paced beside a potted orange tree, dripping onto the tiles. Captain Hale guarded the door, revolver holstered, but hand resting on the butt. Evelyn Langford sat on a wicker chaise, white-faced, twisting a sodden handkerchief. The Comtesse had been allowed to remain under house arrest. She stood by the fountain, smoking with mechanical calm. Clarissa, stripped of wigs and rouge, simply Clarissa now, was absent, locked in the wine cellar with 2 gendarmes. The others, Valenska, Blaine, Veronin, were already en route to Nice in a prison van. The telegram was from the Procureur de la République. Poirot read it aloud, his voice cutting through the wind's howl. "Stop! New evidence! Victor Langford alive at 11:59. Photographic proof. Hold all suspects. Poirot." A collective gasp. The storm outside seemed to pause, listening. "Alive," Evelyn whispered. "But I saw the body." "You saw a body," Poirot corrected, "but not necessarily Victor's." He laid the telegram on a glass table and produced a photograph, glossy, freshly printed in the dark room. It showed the main balcony at 11:59 p.m., timestamp burned into the corner. The fireworks were at their peak, illuminating a tableau. Victor Langford, unmistakably alive, leaning over the balustrade. His face was turned toward the camera, mouth open in a shout or a laugh. Behind him, a figure in scarlet, Clarissa, reached out, not pushing but pulling. And on the rocks below, 20 meters down, another figure lay crumpled, dark hair, evening dress. The room spun, the storm redoubled, rain lashing the glass like grape shot. Hale was first to speak. "The man on the rocks, who is he?" Poirot's answer was soft. "Henri, the butler." The Comtesse dropped her cigarette into the fountain. It hissed and died. "Henri?" Lefebvre echoed. "But he served the absinthe." "He served death," Poirot said, "and received it. Listen carefully, for the storm gathers all threads into one knot." He began to pace, cane tapping. At 11:37, Henri carried the absinthe tray to the balcony. Victor, already drunk, demanded a private word. They argued about wages, about a woman, about smuggling. Henri had been Victor's courier for months, skimming profits. Victor threatened exposure. Henri, in a panic, slipped Toujon into Victor's glass. But Victor suspected. He forced Henri to drink from the same goblet, to prove it safe. Henri swallowed a mouthful. Within minutes, he felt the paralysis begin. Poirot gestured to the photograph. Victor, cunning to the last, staged the scene. He dragged the dying Henri to the balustrade, propped him against it, and waited for the poison to finish its work. At 11:57, Henri toppled over, pushed by Victor's own hand. The fireworks masked the timing. Victor then leaned out, shouting to the crowd below, creating witnesses to his survival. Clarissa, arriving for her midnight rendezvous, saw Victor alive and Henri falling. She lunged, not to kill, but to save the wrong man. Victor, startled, lost balance. She pushed him accidentally. He fell, striking the rocks where Henri already lay. Evelyn's voice was a thread. 2 bodies? Entwined, Poirot said. Henri's beneath, Victor atop. In the darkness, the blood, the confusion, no one noticed the second corpse until the tide receded at dawn. Dr. Laurent's autopsy was rushed. He examined only the topmost body. The storm delayed recovery of the lower one. He produced a second photograph, taken at low tide that morning. 2 bodies, tangled like lovers, one with Henri's thin moustache, the other Victor's silver temples. Lefebvre swore. Then Clarissa is innocent of murder. Of intentional murder, Poirot corrected. She pushed Victor in panic, believing she saved Henri. But Henri was already dead, poisoned by his own hand, pushed by Victor's. A storm of errors. The Comtesse spoke for the first time. Her voice raw. And my daughter? Clarissa will be charged with manslaughter, Poirot said. The poisons, Valenska's, Blaine's, Veronin's, were in the glass, but Henri drank first. Their intent was murder, but fate intervened. The Thujon killed Henri. The fall killed Victor. Clarissa's push was the final gust in the storm. Hale's hand left his revolver. And the birth certificate? The Comtesse's motive? Real, Poirot said, but irrelevant to the deaths. The Comtesse protected Clarissa from scandal, not murder. She supplied strychnine to Veronin to sicken Victor, not kill him. Another twist, the storm unravelled. Thunder crashed directly overhead. The glass roof trembled. A pane cracked with a sound like a gunshot. Rain poured through, soaking the marble. Poirot raised his voice above the tumult. The gathering storm has spoken. Henri poisoned the chalice. Victor staged his survival and sealed his doom. Clarissa's push was accident. The others accessories to a crime that never fully happened. Justice will sort the threads, but fate has already cut them. He turned to the Comtesse. Madame, your daughter lives. The guillotine will not claim her, but exile, yes. To Russia, perhaps, where her true name means nothing. The Comtesse's eyes filled. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Do not thank me, he said. Thank the storm. It washed the balcony clean. Lightning illuminated the room, freezing them all in a strobe of white. Evelyn weeping silently. Hale rigid with relief. Lefebvre scribbling notes. The Comtesse reaching for a gardenia that wasn't there. Poirot gathered his case. I depart on the night train. The blue train waits, even in storms. Captain Hale, you will escort Clarissa to the border. Inspector, the bodies, to the morgue. The villa closes tonight. As he moved toward the door, the wind shifted. The storm, spent, began to ease. Rain softened to a whisper. Thunder rolled away toward Italy. Poirot paused on the threshold. One last detail. The dolphin statue. Its eyes were scratched last night. Someone tried to pry them open, seeking the compartment. But the storm loosened the base. It fell at 5:03 a.m., revealing a final secret. He opened his hand. A gold locket, small and tarnished. Inside, a miniature portrait of a baby, Clarissa, and a lock of dark hair. On the back, engraved to my daughter from her father. VL. Victor Langford was the father, Poirot said quietly. He knew. He blackmailed the Comtesse not for money, but for acknowledgement. Clarissa never knew. The storm gave her the truth and took it away. The Comtesse took the locket with trembling fingers. He loved her in his way. Love is the fiercest storm of all, Poirot replied. He stepped into the corridor. The villa's lights flickered, then steadied. Behind him, the winter garden settled into silence, the broken pane dripping like a slow tear. Outside, the storm had passed. The sea gleamed slate blue under a clearing sky. Poirot's taxi waited, engine running. He climbed in, closed the door, and looked back once. Villa Azur stood against the cliffs, windows dark, balconies empty. The dolphin statue lay toppled, its bronze tail pointing to the sky like a question. The storm had gathered, raged and dispersed. The truths it revealed would echo longer than thunder. Poirot tapped the driver's shoulder. "À la gare, s'il vous plaît." As the car wound down the corniche, he opened his notebook and wrote, "Case resolved. 2 deaths, 1 push, no murder in intent. The storm was the true killer, and the truest witness. Order restored, the little grey cells at peace." He closed the book. The train's whistle sounded in the distance, mournful and final. The gathering storm was over. Chapter 10. Revelation on the balcony. The storm had left the world rinsed and gleaming. By late afternoon, the sky over Villa Azur was a hard, flawless blue, and the balcony, scrubbed clean of blood, absinthe and white powder, shone like a stage set for the final act. Every chair had been carried out from the winter garden and arranged in a precise semicircle facing the dolphin statue, now righted and bolted to the terrazzo by 2 silent workmen. The sea below was calm, almost apologetic, its waves lapping the rocks with the gentleness of a confession. Hercule Poirot stood at the balustrade, hands clasped behind his back, the wind tugging at his Homburg. Behind him, the suspects were assembled, not as prisoners, but as witnesses to the truth. Clarissa sat between 2 gendarmes, wrists free but ankles chained to the chair legs. The Comtesse, Isolde, stood beside her, one hand resting lightly on her daughter's shoulder. Evelyn Langford and Captain Hale occupied the front row, side by side, yet careful not to touch. Inspector Lefebvre hovered near the French windows, notebook open, pencil poised. Sir Reginald Blaine, Count Veronin, and Madame Valenska had been brought back from Nice under guard. Their faces were grey with fatigue and the knowledge that the game was over. Poirot turned. The sun caught the lenses of his pince-nez and flashed like a signal. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice carrying easily over the hush of the sea, "we have reached the denouement. The little grey cells have marched, countermarched, and finally halted before the truth. You have heard fragments, poison, push, accident, conspiracy. Now you will hear the whole, plain as the dolphin before you." He lifted a small silver bell from his pocket and rang it once. The clear note silenced even the gulls. First, the victims. 2 men died on these rocks. Henri the butler at 11:57, poisoned by his own Thujon. Victor Langford at 11:59, pushed by Clarissa in a moment of panic. Yet neither death was the murder we sought. Henri poisoned himself by accident. Victor staged the scene to escape his debts and his enemies. Fate, not intent, killed them both. He paced slowly before the semicircle. Second, the poisons. 3 were added to the absinthe. Valenska's Thujon, Blaine's cyanide, Veronin's strychnine. Each meant to sicken or kill Victor. None succeeded as planned. Henri drank, first and died. The others were wasted on a corpse. You are guilty of intent, not of murder. Valenska's laugh cracked. So we are free? Non. Attempted murder is still a crime, but the guillotine will not claim you. Blaine sagged with relief. Veronin merely closed his eyes. Third, the push. Clarissa believed she was saving Henri when she lunged at Victor. A tragic error. Manslaughter, not murder. The court will be merciful." Clarissa lifted her head. "And my mother?" Poirot's gaze softened as it met the Comtesse's. Isolde de Rochefort concealed her daughter's birth, forged identities, supplied strychnine to frighten, not kill, accessory after the fact. She will lose the villa, perhaps her title, but not her freedom. He paused at the dolphin statue and laid a hand on its cool bronze flank. Fourth, the true crime, smuggling. Sea Witch carried antiquities from Alexandria to New York. Victor Langford was the broker, Count Veronin the supplier, Sir Reginald the banker, Madame Valenska the fence, Captain Hale the reluctant observer. Clarissa photographed every transaction. The ring ends today. The yacht is seized, the manifests are with the procureur, the buyers will be arrested from Athens to Boston. Hale inclined his head. "Naval intelligence thanks you, Poirot." Poirot waved the thanks away. "I serve order, not a nation's." He turned to Evelyn. "Madame Langford, you withheld evidence, saw the push, said nothing, a fine, perhaps community service. Your future with Captain Hale is yours to claim." Evelyn's eyes filled, but she managed a nod. Poirot stepped to the exact spot where Victor had fallen. He pointed to a faint scratch on the terrazzo, no longer than a thumbnail. This mark was made at 11:58:30, 30 seconds before Victor went over. A heel, Clarissa's scarlet slipper, catching as she lunged. The timing is precise because the dolphin's eyes held a secret. He reached into the statue's mouth and pressed a concealed spring. A tiny compartment clicked open. Inside lay a miniature camera, no larger than a matchbox, its lens aimed at the balustrade. "Clarissa's insurance," Poirot explained, "a clockwork mechanism triggered by the midnight chime. It took 3 exposures, 11:58, 11:59, 12 from close. The first shows Victor alive, Henri already over. The second, Clarissa's lunge. The third," he held up the final print, "Victor falling, Clarissa's face contorted with horror, not triumph, proof of accident." Clarissa's voice was a whisper. "I thought I was saving him." "You saved the truth," Poirot said gently. He faced the assembly once more. "The revelation is complete. No single murderer, no grand conspiracy, only a storm of human weakness. Greed, fear, love, panic. The balcony was the crucible, fate the fire. 2 men died, a ring was broken, a mother and daughter were reunited in sorrow. Order is restored." He rang the silver bell again. The note lingered pure and final. "Inspector Lefebvre, the charges, Clarissa Voronina, manslaughter, forgery, smuggling, sentence to be commuted to exile. Comtesse Isolde de Rochefort, accessory, concealment of birth, villa forfeited, title suspended. Sir Reginald Blaine, attempted murder, money laundering, 10 years. Count Alexei Veronin, attempted murder, smuggling, 15 years. Madame Valenska, attempted murder, receiving stolen goods, 8 years. Evelyn Langford, withholding evidence, fine and probation. Captain Hale, cleared, commended." Lefebvre snapped his notebook shut. The gendarmes moved forward. As Clarissa was helped to her feet, the Comtesse embraced her fiercely. "We will meet again, my love. In Odessa, perhaps, under our true name." Clarissa's tears fell onto her mother's diamonds. "I only wanted to protect you." Poirot watched, then turned to the sea. The sun was setting now, a perfect disk of fire balanced on the horizon. He spoke so softly, only the wind heard. "Protection is the most dangerous love of all." The prisoners were led away. The balcony emptied until only Poirot remained. He opened his Morocco notebook and wrote with a steady hand, "Case closed. Deaths too, accidental and misdirected. Motives legion. Justice, imperfect but served. The balcony is silent. The dolphin keeps its secrets no longer. HP, He closed the book, slipped it into his pocket, and descended the exterior staircase to the waiting taxi. The driver stowed his valise. The engine turned over with a cough. As the car wound down the corniche, Poirot looked back once. Villa Azur stood white against the darkening cliffs, its balconies empty, its windows blind. The dolphin statue caught the last ray of sun and flashed like a farewell. The taxi turned a bend. The villa vanished. Poirot adjusted his Homburg, smoothed his moustache, and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The little grey cells were at rest. The revelation was complete.